Begin, I'd like to take a minute to introduce you to your host, the Board of Directors. First, we have Yolanda Gibson and Brenda Camarena as co-chairs of the Marin Latino Leaders. Monica Cañas manages public relations. Yolanda Barahona is our treasurer, and I am honored to serve as secretary. I also want to encourage you to follow us and keep track of goings on through emails and social media. You can find that information at the bottom of the slide here. Okay, before I pass the microphone back over to our chair, Yolanda, I'd like to read and review our statement of purpose, which reads, Marin Latino Leaders was created to support and elevate the Latino voice in Marin County by recognizing leadership through networking opportunities that empowers the sharing of their challenges and successes. It is a platform to raise one voice for political, social, educational, and economic change for the enhancement of the Latino community. Marin Latino Leaders is committed to make this a successful entity by featuring speakers that have succeeded in their careers and or have contributed to the community. Thank you for coming. And at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Yolanda Gibson, our co-chair.
Hello, Yolanda, if you could please.
I'm coming in. I'm sorry. Welcome, everyone, to our wonderful lunch today. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the elected officials and special guests. Kate Collin, Mayor of the City of San Rafael. Lori Fergoli, District Attorney at Marin County District Attorney's Office. Linda Jackson, President of the San Rafael City School Board. Lisa Bennett, Trustee at South Salito Marin City School Board. Captain Jim Correa, Novato Police Department, and Captain Roy Leon, San Rafael Police Department. Thank you for your service. Today we are celebrating International Women's Day, and we are featuring Latinas en Poder y Liderazgo. Our first speaker is going to be Cecilia Quintana-Perez, and our next speaker will be Berta Campos-Anicetti. Cecilia is Director of English Learner Program at the San Rafael City Schools. And Berta Campos-Anicetti is the Director of Latinx Services at North Marin. So we'll start first with Cecilia Quintana-Perez, and Monica will read her bio.
Hello, everyone. I will have the pleasure of reading the bios for our speakers today. And I just wanted to mention real quick that unfortunately, Catalina Lozano, who was supposed to be on the panel today, is not able to make it due to illness. Therefore, hopefully we can feature her on a future luncheon. So our first guest for today is Cecilia Quintana-Perez. Cecilia currently serves as the Director of English Learner Programs for San Rafael City Schools. Previously, she served as the principal of Bahia Vista Elementary School in San Rafael's Canal community for 7 years. She is fully bilingual and biliterate in English and Spanish. Ms. Perez holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in Liberal Studies from Sonoma State University with a minor in Mexican American Studies. In 2000, she earned a Master's of Education in Instruction and Curriculum Design from Dominican University. And in 2014, she earned a second master's degree in Educational Leadership and her Administrative Services credential from SF State University. Cecilia was raised with an understanding that the strength, beauty, and fortitude of Latinos and immigrant communities are too often overlooked and not valued in our society. Thank you, Cecilia, for being here. We're really, really excited. And yeah, we want to learn more from you. So thank you, and you may begin.
Thank you, Monica. Well, first, I just want to thank Marin Latino Leaders for creating this space for us to come together as a community. I know that you all have a lot on your plates. You're very busy, so I really appreciate that you take the time to keep this really important organization moving and bringing us together. Also, I see a few colleagues on the call, so I want to thank them for showing up and just for everything I learned from you and have learned from you in the past. And there's a few people I see on the call that I know of their work and their great work. I haven't had the fortune to meet them personally, but hopefully these are the kind of events, right, where we can make those important connections. So Monica shared just a little bit about my background. I'll go a little bit just kind of in my work experience, and I'm going to date myself. I'm aging myself right now. I started teaching bilingual kindergarten at Bella Vista School, the Jewel of the Canal, in 1997. I was blessed to be placed at that school. It's exactly the community I wanted to serve, and it was a perfect place for me to really grow into becoming an educator and an advocate for students and families. So I see it as an incredible gift that I was given 25 years ago, right? Having been around a while, I have seen a lot of the changes that have happened in education, everything from Prop 187 to Prop 227, eliminating bilingual education, the ICE raids that happened in our community kind of in the late 2000s, which not so coincidentally, right, align with the housing crisis and the economy, which we know that traditionally when there's a lot of the immigrant scapegoating goes hand in hand when we're kind of in economic strife as a country. So I've seen that firsthand. I've seen how it has affected our community, and it really has just served to strengthen kind of my role and my calling to really support the community that has given me so much. I can say after all these years, I have earned far, far more from working in this community than I have given. So it's really my job to continue to pay it forward to the students and families of San Rafael. So I grew up here in Marin County. I grew up in Novato. I have two boys, 14 and 17. We're in the process of getting college acceptance letters and making that big decision for my firstborn of which school he's going to go into to continue his education. It's been an interesting process, and I'm constantly comparing my understanding of applying for college and what college was even all about when I was a senior in high school to what his experience is now. So I can see how the education I've been afforded and the experiences I've been afforded have helped me better support him in these decisions. And I know that that's an area that we can certainly work towards together to support our families here in Marin County when they're making those important decisions for their children as well. My father came to California with his grandma at 12 years old and landed in Fresno, was a campesino. And then after about a year of doing that, settled in San Francisco Mission District. So my dad really considers himself a Chicano, and we were born knowing we're Chicanos. My mom is of English-Irish descent, also born and raised in the San Francisco Mission District. And if you know the history of San Francisco, there's actually quite a beautiful story in the Mission Excelsior District with the Latino immigrants and then Irish immigrants coming in. So what they had in common was really coming from large families. Neither one of them graduated high school. They got married very young, started their family very young, and worked really, really hard. And back in 1971, they were able to scrape up $10,000 to put a down payment on a home in Novato. And my mom came like kicking and screaming. She did not want to leave San Francisco, but my dad he had some foresight, and he wanted us to be able to have some land. As long as he had a little space for his milpa to plant his corn and his chiles and his tomates, we were good. But I'm very thankful for that move. And I wonder what my life might have been like had I not been given the opportunity to live in more of a suburb rather than in the big city. So these little choices that we make throughout our lives and how that impacts the next generation. I was, like I said, I was really raised to be very cognizant of who I am and where I come from. And we were very much encouraged and sometimes told, like, we need to maintain Spanish, we need to speak Spanish in the home. So that was always an interesting kind of dynamic in my family. My mom is not a Spanish speaker. She's probably the best Mexican cook you'll ever meet because my tias taught her. That was, according to my dad, that was the condition of getting married, is that she had to learn to cook all the food. But later in life, I traveled abroad, and then I would spend summers in Mexico studying Spanish, and that's where I was able to really learn Spanish. And of course, all my years working in the canal with the community has afforded me the opportunity to practice on a daily basis. My role now as a EL director, this is my first year working at the district office. It's very exciting. It's a big learning curve. It's very different. I miss not being at the site. I miss those daily interactions, but at the same time, I felt really compelled to take on this next challenge in my career so that I could bring the voices of our students and families and educators from the site level into the district office to really affect the change that needs to happen that quite honestly is long overdue. One of my big roles, of course, is implementing the district EL master plan, but truthfully, my role is really to bring those voices to the table. And so I'm really fortunate to have this opportunity and to be able to be part of kind of cabinet level decisions where that directly impact our students and families. It was also a selfish way for me to stay connected to the community because I get to still work with families in a different way. I can connect with former students now that they're in middle and high school, which is extremely fulfilling to me. One of my colleagues on the call, Pepe Gonzalez, we co-facilitate our monthly DLAC meetings where we have really great turnout from our families. We get really good engagement. And that's just another example of how we are able to bring our families' voices so that they feel heard, they feel seen, they feel appreciated and valued, and that they can gain those skills to really be a part of the decision-making process here in our district and at the site level. I have a deep level of investment in this work. So I'm very honored. I'm learning every day and really appreciative for this opportunity. Just kind of in terms of leadership in general, we were asked to speak a little bit around leadership, particularly among women, particularly among Latinas. And I'll be honest, for me, hearing the word leadership, I kind of cringe inside because I never really saw myself as a leader. I never really saw myself. I don't really think in hierarchical terms, although I'm not naive. I know they do exist in systems, right? But I was raised in a very kind of collectivist cultural background and the importance of staying humble and really committing to the work. But I do recognize too that there are few and far between do we find Latina voices at decision-making levels. So I do have that additional responsibility of representing not just myself, but more importantly, our community well, and staying true to the values that I believe, that I personally believe in, but that I also believe we need to really embrace as a community and as society as a whole to welcome our English learners and our Latino families into our schools and into our community. We live in a very segregated system and we're fighting against that system daily, but we need to be able to make those brave decisions and have those tough conversations in order to affect change. And it doesn't happen fast enough, but ni modo, seguimos luchando. I would just say there's really nothing remarkable about me or my story, but what I would want to impart on young women, especially young Latinas, is to really find that balance between that kind of that fire that we innately have, that fuego en la panza that we have, that keeps us grounded and keeps us focused and makes us fierce, with patience and humility, which sometimes it's a hard balance, right? Because we have very identified roles traditionally as women in our community and in our families, and we have so much to say and so much to offer. So I think cultivating that within young women and young Latinas who have so much more wisdom than they even realize. Also to be able to kind of recognize that there is knowledge we possess that we don't even tap into because it's just second nature to us. We might use it in our personal lives, but we can actually take all of that knowledge and wisdom that really comes from our ancestors and our elders, that generational, like indigenous knowledge and understanding, and apply it in this current landscape, that whatever you find yourself in, whatever field of work that you're in. So it's exciting. I stay connected to a lot of former students, and it's exciting to see their trajectories and kind of where they're taking their individual talents and their individual passions. And then lastly, I would just say among leadership, I guess it was just what I was saying, kind of that balance between your personal goals and kind of our familial commitments and roles that we tend to fall into. I don't want to kind of overspeak on myself, but I just can't express enough how appreciative I am to be in this position, and that I take this as not just a calling, but it's like my duty. Like I would not have been here if it weren't for people that crossed my path that helped me along the way. I graduated high school. I didn't even know the difference between a bachelor's degree and a master's degree. So I needed somebody to step in and to kind of take my hand and recognize all that my parents were able to give to me and that wonderful foundation they gave me. And then the areas that they weren't quite equipped to provide me with, have people in your lives that can come and support you in those areas. So my biggest wish is to just do good and to hopefully be that person for as many young people as possible, to learn from my colleagues. And kind of our parting kind of word that I always think is, if not us as a community, then who? And if not now, then when? So it's kind of our call to action as a community. So I really appreciate your time and for even considering me for this. I know there are many, many amazing Latina leaders in our community, many of whom are on this call today. So muchas gracias.
Thank you, Cecilia. Gracias for sharing that. It's so inspiring hearing your story and just knowing that, you know, we can come from, you know, these struggling immigrant families and backgrounds and still be able to come and achieve our dreams and be able to pass that wisdom on to the future generations. So thank you so much for sharing that. And so now I have the honor to introduce the next speaker for today. Berta Campos-Anicetti. Berta is the Director of Latinx Services at North Marin Community Services, which includes overseeing the Promotores program and involved in the leadership team of Healthy Novato and NIOT Novato. She has won numerous awards, including the Novato Multicultural Commission, Rene Lopez Faces of Novato, the Marin County Human Rights Commission, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Humanitarian Award, the Empowering the Latino Community Leadership Award by the North Bay Leadership Council, and the Latino Business Leadership Award by the North Bay Business Journal. Berta emigrated to the US from El Salvador when she was 16 years old. She did not speak English and faced the struggles of being a new immigrant. Her commitment to fostering cross-cultural understanding and building interpersonal respect has helped make Marin a better place for all of us to live. And I will pass on the mic to Berta Campos. Thank you, Berta, for being here today.
Thank you, Monica. I wanted to, first of all, thank Cecilia for being here today and sharing her story with us, and to Marin Latino Leaders for inviting me to share my story as well. My journey in this country started when I arrived in my senior year in high school. And like many families from El Salvador, we came running away from the war. My parents were teachers, and many of their co-workers and family members were being kidnapped, tortured, and killed. And they wanted a safe and better place for my sister and I to live. So they sent us over here. And the irony of that story is that we ended up coming to live in a neighborhood that was very violent in the city at the time I lived there. And also I ended up going to Woodrow Wilson High School, which was a high school that had a lot of violence, lots of gangs. Just to illustrate, a student shot another student 2 months before I arrived. And we used to have hall guards. That's what we used to call the campus supervisors back then. We used to have whole cars walk us down the hill to the bus stop on our way home so that we wouldn't get mugged on the way home. And so that was the ironic part, is that my family sent us here thinking we were going to be safer. And it was a different kind of danger, but it was dangerous too. My story is similar to many of immigrants, and dealing with family separation, parents coming a little later to join us, and us once they came here as 4, living in a bedroom at my aunt's house, and all of those struggles that a lot of us had to go through. We studied and worked to help our parents pay for rent and all of that. And I became the head of household because I happened to learn English a little faster in the family than the rest of us. And so at 18, I was dealing with the landlord and paying bills and balancing checkbooks and taking my own parents to the doctor to translate for their medical needs. And so the story is very common, as many of us are familiar with that. But anyhow, my career plans had to change in this new country. And lucky for me, I discovered the wonderful world of public health. I grew up watching my mom helping the world, getting herself into bigger debt because she wanted and needed to help her friends. And she's a giver, and she's here with me. So she's 94 years old, and thank you, Mom, because she taught me how to give and how we receive so much more when we give. And we didn't have a lot, but I sure was surrounded by a lot of love and a lot of high expectations for schooling, which was very important in my life. Because as my mom said, education is the only inheritance we're gonna be able to leave you, and no one can take that away from you. So the message for us was clear. They said, you can work to help us pay bills, but if your grades go down, they would tell us, my parents would say, then we won't take a penny, even if we starve. So that message was super, super clear. School had to come first. And I was always like la negrita de la familia, and I didn't get a lot of praise for my looks back then, because American values were very high in Latin America. And if you didn't have light skin and lighter hair, you were less than. And so the books were my heaven. The books became my refuge. I love reading and learning new things and sharing the knowledge with others. And I never been really excited about cooking and cleaning. If it wasn't for my brains, I always make this joke about, if it wasn't for my brains and my profession, I would have gotten in trouble for not being the good traditional Latina. But seriously, I learned to be comfortable with not fitting in and in finding my own way of being, not trying to do what others or society wanted of me, but to do what I enjoy. And so what if I haven't made up my bed every morning in the past weeks? I'd rather go for a hike or a bike ride, or turn on some reggaeton and dance while I do the dishes, because those dishes do have to get done after all. Anyway, witnessing so much injustice in my country, as well as here in the US, was hard, but at least here I could speak up and not risk getting killed. I learned to speak up about injustice from my dad, going to protest in El Salvador, asking, for better salaries or better justice, better benefits, better treatment for people. I went to protest with my dad since I was 3 years old. I was going his shoulders and trotting around in the downtowns of San Salvador. And that, I think, also helped me figure out what I wanted to do in life. I have been fortunate to have a lot of wonderful mentors and role models. At UC Santa Cruz, Elba Sanchez, my professor and director of Spanish speakers program at the time over there. She was wonderful. Whenever I was getting tired of many things at school, frustrated in college, she was always there. She was encouraging and helping me see the way out. If I was short of money, she said she got me a job as a tutor in the program. I didn't have a car to come home and drive home. She connected me to people who lived in the city so they could give me rides home. She also taught me how to find a Greyhound station in Santa Cruz so that I could come home and do some work. Because the work that I used to work at was in an office, and that's another story for another day, but they would say work for me for the weekend so that I could still earn decent money because they pay me a decent salary then. And so that way I could still go away for college, which it took me 4 years after junior college. 4 years of junior college and 3 years of UC Santa Cruz, because I had to learn on my English there and also help parents pay for rent still. So I was very fortunate. I'm a product of affirmative action and very proud of that. I am a proud person who got full scholarship. If it wasn't for all of those resources for people like me, I wouldn't be where I am today. But many women in my life have supported me, and I will never forget that. Other types of support have been incredibly powerful for me. Something as simple as my husband and family back then when we were dating, when I finished school with my English, people, I wouldn't have another way to learn more, to improve my English. So I would say to them, I don't care if I'm in front of the president. You correct me if I make a mistake. And you help me remember how to not make that mistake again. And that's being vulnerable is one of those things that I learned that have been very helpful for me. Being able to say, I don't care who I'm in front of, but please correct me, because if you don't help me, I'm not taking any more classes. So how am I gonna know if I'm saying something wrong? And they took me seriously, and they would do it over and over. And I am grateful for that, because that's a skill that is very helpful in my job, being bilingual. And so it's also been an honor to have become the support person for others over time. I had many, like I said, strong women in my life. There's this woman named Christine Galvez. She recently passed away. She lived in Visitation Valley, the neighborhood where I grew up after I came to the US. And she was incredibly helpful to myself and my family. I used to clean homes on the weekends. My sister and I would go and clean big homes, and Christine got me an office job. And I was able to switch to that job, to that kind of work. And my respects for people who home to clean homes. That is hard work. And I respect a lot of that, but it wasn't for me. And I really wanted to do something different. And then Susana Hennessy and La Clínica de la Raza is where someone who supported me, pushed me to go to grad school after she would hear me complain about so many things that I needed to learn and I didn't know how. At La Clínica de la Raza in the early 90s, I'm dating myself, Cecilia, too. I started my career as a health educator. And it was there at La Clínica that I was blessed to start working with promotores. No one knew what promotores were back then. They were not fashionable yet. They were only well known in the Peace Corps and in developing countries in Africa. And I learned that degrees are not necessary to do an excellent work in education and being an educator, a health educator, and an advocate. Life experiences were often more valuable than degrees. Degrees were useful. They were useful for funders, for getting a better salary, and for getting me some respect and the opportunity to speak up when people made assumptions about me because of the way I looked. So I went back to school for my master's in public health so I could learn to design programs para nuestra gente, so that I wouldn't have to use curriculum and materials that were designed in English for English speakers. And which, by the way, sometimes happens more even now, many, many years. But for the past 20 years, I've had the pleasure to work for the North Marine Community Services, and formerly known as the Novato Youth Center and the Novato Human Needs Center. We're proud to be celebrating 50 years this year. And we have done a lot of growth as an organization, and myself along with the organization. It's been hard work, but very meaningful work. And people often ask me, why have I been there for so long? You know, they say, why are you even working Novato? It's such a racist place, people say to me. You know, it's been a very rewarding and hard process. I remember Veronica Reed, the former director of the Novato Youth Center back then. And when she got to know me, I applied for a job and I didn't, it wasn't something that I was looking for. And she said, why don't you join the board? And I said, the board? I have nothing in common with all those people, those rich people, I said to her, and she laughed. And I said, I'm the one doing the best economically out of my family. I don't even have connections with people to ask for donations. How could I be a board member? And she said to me, you know how to write grants? You can write a grant and get us a ton of money all at once. You don't have to ask others for donations. Other people can do that. You can contribute in different ways. And that said to me that organization had a different way of looking at things. The other piece that I think is super important to talk about is how in that place, in that board, I found my voice. I was given mentors again. They were not Latinos. I was the only one in that whole board. But they were people with good hearts who were willing to teach me the ropes and to make space for me to share my personal immigrant experience with them. And I had to learn many deep breaths, count till 10, perhaps sometimes till 100, and use my sweet little smiles to speak the truth, but always with respect. To hear other people's perspectives and trying to understand where they were coming from has been one of the most powerful tools I ever learned in my life, personally and professionally. Whenever I got frustrated and angry, and I rose my voice, and those moments were hardly ever successful. It is when I took time to calm myself and to learn when it was the appropriate time to bring up something that was important. When I learned to take those deep breaths and with a smile and trying to understand that other side, as wrong as it was, but try to understand where they were coming from, was super important. It's always been, and I think it always will be. Sometimes people say things out of ignorance, sometimes out of hatred, but having difficult conversations. Thank you, North Marine Community Services and Epoch Education, for giving me tools on leadership, on how to have difficult conversations. That helped me get the stage. And again, the key's always been respect, even if I don't agree with anything, even if we don't see anything in common among us. The other piece that's been very helpful is that I actually can't hide how I feel. I could tell you with words, but my body language will tell you, because I will turn red, because my voice cracks, and because I shake when I am very, very engaged in something that I really care for. And I think even though that could be labeled as being an emotional woman, it also tells you that I am genuinely invested in that conversation. It's very important that people know that I know that I'm telling the truth, and they know that by my body language, that I stand with my values. Thank you, Leo Training, the Leadership for Equity and Opportunity, and MCF for giving the funding for that, so that I could learn how to stand with my values, so that I could have these courageous conversations and calling out and being more conscious of power dynamics and inequities and injustice. So at North Marine Community Services, I have learned to add our voices to others and to call for action to repair systems of inequity in our communities, creating more opportunities for others to be able to grow. It sounds easy, but we all know that in reality, is that over many years here in Marine, we still don't know how to play together. You know, we often compete with each other, and we work in silos instead of forming true meaningful partnerships. So we really need to take a look at that piece, because I think that's what's holding us back. We need to start looking at each other's strengths and working with that, instead of pulling each other down, trying to be the ones who get the funding to do the work. So another key success is to diversify funding, because if we have different funding sources, when we don't get a grant renewed, then your program will fall apart. Listening to the community is also very important. So often we think we know what the community wants, and then we ask and we get surprised. I learned that lesson when I first started the Promotores program. I learned that I thought immigration was going to be their #1 priority, and I was shocked. It was reducing underage drinking among the youth, and I could have sworn I knew. But if I wouldn't have asked, I would have never have known. I would have gone and found funding for something that I thought the community wanted, when in reality, the community wanted something else. So super important to remember that. Part of the success of the Promotores program is that every year, we'd have to check in and see, what are your priorities? Do you still want to work on this issue? And my job is to find the funds so they can do the work. They can do the work that they want to do, not necessarily what I feel like is best. So the other piece that I think is very important to remember is that our work is very emotional, and we have to learn to accept that. So let's try to choose to work with those with genuine hearts, and those people who are in it for the long haul. Making room to express feelings in this work, it's also very important. Space to express our feelings of joy, or proudness, frustration, and anger. But we gotta make room for that, because otherwise we won't be able to stick around for the long haul. Choosing to focus to work on a specific thing of work is very important too. If we spread ourselves too thin, we won't be able to accomplish meaningful change. And that's important for some of us who get called to do so many things and to be involved in a ton of things. And being able to stay focused on a little portion would make us be more successful, because we are called to join so many efforts and sometimes we can't do it all. So lastly, I talk enough, but I want to thank North Marine Community Services for giving me a place to be heard, a place to grow, to make mistakes, and to learn from them, to be respected and valued, and to being open to supporting a program such like the Promotores, a program that is very different than the norm, and they always been open to that. The Promotores are excellent, quiet leaders who give all of their heart in support of our community. We think we work hard, but think about people holding 2 jobs, raising a family, supporting parents and family members in their home countries, learning English, being active in their church and in their kids' school, and doing Promotores work on their spare time as volunteers. They are truly the ones who should be honored during International Month and every day of this year, of the year. They are the heroes. They are the ones who really put their hearts out there to improve our community. Humility is something I learned from the Promotores. And I want to conclude telling you a teeny story about leadership. Monica, when she introduced me, listed all those awards that I gotten. And at first, like Cecilia said, super uncomfortable with being the spotlight. I don't like being on the spotlight. But I was part of another wonderful woman, Ethel Siderman, had a Wisdom Trust little group of us who talked about leadership all the time. And when I was getting all those awards, one after the other, I told Cheryl Paddock, thank you, Cheryl, for being such a great supporter, our CEO at North Marine Community Services. I said, Cheryl, please tell people to stop nominating me because I am really feeling uncomfortable about all of these award stuff. And so she said, all right. And I went to my Wisdom Trust leadership circle with Ethel and my peers, and we were talking and I shared that story. And Ethel said to me, have you ever thought that this is not about you? Oh my God, the most powerful wisdom in those words. Because yes, I was stuck on me. Oh, I am feeling so uncomfortable because, you know, there's so many deserving people. It is true. In our community, we have a lot of powerful women that I have worked along with. But what I didn't realize is that sometimes people give awards to others because they want to recognize the work of a group. Those awards weren't for me. Those awards were for many of us here in this conversation. Those awards were to recognize the work of many, not just me. I'm just a vehicle. But it's really important to think about that. Those of us who get pushed to be leaders and co-leaders, sometimes it's hard for us to take that label on. But if we think about who we represent, we can speak for all. I can only speak for myself, but the work, it is group work. It is community work. So that's important to remember. So anyway, I spoke enough, but in summary, my learnings: be humble, speak from the heart, be respectful, ponte en los zapatos de los demás, put yourself on other people's shoes, lead from behind, and constantly encouraging and supporting, and don't give up. There is always a way. We can find a way. It might take years, many years, pero sí se puede. Muchas gracias.
Wow, so touching. Muchísimas gracias a las dos for sharing your stories and the journey that has gotten you where you are now. I know both of you through my work in schools and in the community. And for Marin Latino leaders, it's important to acknowledge and celebrate the wonderful work that Latina leaders like yourselves do in our community. I think that your leadership and your actions and all the work that you do should be recognized. And thank you for being movers and shakers and for leading the way in our community during these challenging times, and also for being an inspiration for other Latino leaders, and specifically today for other women in our county. And now we'd like to open the space for anyone who would like to share any words of appreciation or acknowledgement to our wonderful panelists, Cecilia and Berta, today.
I believe Linda Jackson wanted to speak.
Yeah, I'm delighted to kick this off. I thought there'd be a long line, so put your hands up, everybody, to say a few words. Listening to you tell your story about when you came here, I think of a line from a poem that's going through my head when we're watching what's going on in Ukraine by Washington Shire, is the poet, and the name of the poem is Home. And the line is, nobody leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. And I heard that in both of your stories. I know you both. And Berta, all I can say, I've seen you for decades. We've worked together for decades. And now when you speak, people listen. They all take a moment. They've got to hear what Berta has to say, because you have such an important message and experience for people to hear. It's not about you, it's about what you are going to impart. So I'm thrilled to see you recognized this way. And then Cecilia, you're a homegrown leader here in San Rafael City Schools. I'll let Jim talk about that a little bit more, but I'll say you're knocking it out of the ballpark with your your English language work. I know in the end, it's not just, you said it's for English, Latino students, but all immigrants. And I know you're there for everybody. I do want to say, I can't help but say, we on the school board have just appointed our third Latina who with immigrants. Two of them are, one's a child of immigrant, and the other two are children of immigrants. No, sorry. One's a child of an immigrant, one came as an immigrant child, and the other one came as an adult. But we're the first board in Marin County to have majority leadership, Latina. And Cecilia, you were present for the miracle of that. And I'm just so glad that you can be here and that we benefit from both of your work for everybody. You work for everybody with empathy and leadership, but with that experience that you have, it's priceless. And I'm so thrilled to see you here. And Jim, I see our superintendent, Jim Hogeboom, is after me. So I'm gonna let you go now.
Thank you, Linda. Jim, I believe you wanted to share some words.
Yeah, thank you, Monica. Well, I just wanted to say how proud I am to know both of you. Berta, I haven't seen you in a while, since Novato, but you are both just amazing leaders for all of us to learn from. I missed your smile and your positive attitude up there in Novato. And Cecilia, I've known when I was in Novato, I tried to steal Cecilia a couple times to be a principal up there, but fortunately now she stayed here. Super happy to have her in a district role. But some of the things you guys have in common are, just a tremendous humility for both of you, even though you're both doing so amazing things. You're so humble. Your innate knowledge and wisdom that you guys have, your ability to stay positive, even after, a lot of really hard experiences. And then just your commitment to social justice and equity. But you guys are just so tremendous. Super happy to have you guys get some recognition today. Keep up the great work. And thank you so much for all you guys do. It's been a pleasure to know you both.
Thank you, Jim. I believe I saw Maria Rea raise her hand. Do you still want to say something?
I was just clapping, but
Oh.
but I can say something though, because I work with Berta and she inspires me every day. I have really no words to describe how grateful I feel about being able to share space with her. And I just feel very lucky. She, as an immigrant, she's the first one to always applaud everything that I accomplish, no matter what it is. She's always supporting me and helping me. And I feel very grateful to be able to learn from her and witness all the amazing work that she is doing. And to Cecilia, I look forward to meeting you and knowing more about the work that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe Wendy Pacheco has her hand up.
I think before Wendy is Jim Correa.
Okay.
Yes, thank you, because I've got to sneak away here in a couple minutes. I wanted to congratulate both Berta and Cecilia and tell you about some of my experiences with Berta. I've had the pleasure of working with her on the North Marin Community Services Board for the last 5 years, and she is one of the most humble people that I know. All these awards she's extremely deserving of, but she doesn't want to be in the spotlight, and that's absolutely true. Her work in Novato with the promotores, I can't tell everybody how important that work has been. Novato sometimes doesn't have the same representation as other parts of the county. So Berta has done a tremendous job connecting people with resources, especially during these times of need. And she's really building other leaders in the community. So not only is she helping people, but she's making people who are going to be people that replace her, who advocate. So hats off to both Cecilia and Berta, and it's an honor to have worked with Berta and all her skills, and we appreciate everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Wendy?
Thank you, Brenda. I just wanted to take a moment to also congratulate both Cecilia and Berta for being celebrated in this way and for offering all of the beautiful gems and lessons that you both offer today. I've had the pleasure of working with Berta one-on-one for the last 3-4 years maybe now. And I just wanted to offer thank you so much for all of the lessons that you have taught me in my early career. As somebody who's not from Marin County and not from Novato, I think I've just learned so much from your grace and your ability to hold those very difficult conversations. And as somebody who's still learning how to do that and still figuring out how do we fight for more resources for our community, how do we shift strategies so that they align with folks who look like us and really meet folks where they're at. You've just been such a beautiful example of how to do that. So thank you for the authentic relationships that you build with young people and with parents, for showing me the way and for paving a way for young professionals like me and for younger Latinas. So thank you so much, Berta. I really appreciate it for all the work that you've done.
Thank you. Lori?
Hey, everyone. I'm not going to duplicate everything that has been said. Oops, sorry. There goes my phone. But Cecilia, I haven't had much opportunity to work with you, but I just know how important it is that we help our students, especially immigrant students who are trying to navigate their way, not only through coming to our community, but also through school. And it's so important, the work that you're doing. And I love to hear you say that students reach back to you and tell you what they're doing. And I think don't ever underappreciate how valuable one person and one teacher can be in someone's life, because you're amazing. And Berta, we've worked together with the Not in Our Town project, and I'm so grateful to have had that time with you and met with you. And I wish you well in your future endeavors. And Jim and everyone has said it the best. You're humble and you're quiet. You speak when it's necessary, and when you do, people do listen. I've never seen you raise your voice despite some kind of situations where you easily could have, but you have always been the voice of reason in the room and the voice of many in the room. So I honor both of you ladies, and thank you so much for everything that you've done. Congratulations, and thank you to the Latino leaders for honoring these women today. Really wonderful.
Thank you, Lori. We appreciate your comments. Yeah, and we also have additional acknowledgements on the chat, so feel free to enjoy those and read them yourselves. And we are going to do some announcements right now.
Okay.
we're so inspired and grateful to have you in our community. So again, thank you both very much for presenting today. And I think it was wonderful that other people share the work that they've done with you during these many years. Okay.
I'm gonna get
well,
this thing up in 1 minute here.
Okay, no worries. We have coming up this coming Sunday is the Marine Teen Girl Conference. This Sunday, March 20th, it'll be from 9 to 3:30 at the Embassy Suites Hotel. And this event is sponsored by the Marine Women's Commission. This is a one-day conference hosting up to 350 girls between the grades 8 and 12. And there's gonna be a lot of workshops with different exhibitors, and these workshops and the exhibitors are chosen by the teen ambassadors. I'm personally very excited about the conference, who is not only organized by amazing young women, but now this year is also free. So that means that more girls in our county will be able to attend. So please share this information in your networks. I think it's wonderful that this is happening in Marin, and we should support our youth. We're also, if we can move to the next slide, Marin Latino Leaders is recruiting, and if you would like to get involved, we'd love to hear from you. We're recruiting for a web designer or web builder, website builder, and we're also looking to expand our board. We especially need or are looking for a cultural officer and social media manager. So please let us know, reach out to us at marinlatinoleaders@gmail.com if you're interested or know of someone who would be a great addition to our team. And we are also gonna share or save the date events or our upcoming luncheons for the year. The next one will be March 16th, and we're hoping to also have an in-person mixer at some point late in the summer, hopefully. And I believe that's it for now. I hope you can join us May 16th, and I can't believe next week is spring, so happy first day of spring. And I don't know if anyone else has any final comments or information they would like to share before we part ways. No, okay, so this concludes our luncheon today. Thank you again to our wonderful guest speakers today, and thank you all, and we'll see you on the 16th.
Great job.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Good job.